I would say that one of the biggest culture shocks that we've experienced here has been the food.
So some people have asked us kind of what food is like here in Kenya, how to cook the food, the Kenyan food, what we eat, and what restaurants and grocery stores are like here. So when we first came here, we kind of decided that it'd be, I guess, a better cultural experience if we started eating the Kenyan food. So at first we were a little nervous, but we instantly really came to like the food. It was pretty instant. And how we started trying food was we would go to the local restaurants just around where we lived, and here they're called hotels. So at first we were a little confused as to where to actually go, but eventually we figured it out, what hotels really were. So a lot of the traditional staple foods are served at most of the hotels, so you can pretty much get a wide variety of Kenyan food, but it's usually the staple foods. So upon coming to Kenya, initially we stayed in a guest house that had a microwave, a refrigerator, and 2 burners. So it was pretty much like it was at home without an oven. But once we moved to our apartment, things kind of changed. We just had a propane grill.
A propane tank?
A propane tank.
With a burner and a grill on top.
So it was a little bit of an adjustment. I had to manage when to start cooking things, and also learn how to really use like 2 to 3 pots for entire meals instead of having maybe 5.
And even not having a fridge made it interesting.
Yeah.
At times. You kind of had to time when you went out to go and buy your vegetables, so that everything would be semi-fresh. We drank a lot of shelf-stable milk. I was spoiled in the sense that I was still able to have cereal every morning for breakfast. It's like my favorite breakfast food. And so I was still able to have granola with shelf-stable milk.
So generally you can buy all of your fruits and veggies and corn and beans and rice from street markets. These were kind of intense experiences for us at some points, because some of the street markets are really big, so there's a lot of chaos, but generally you can get mostly all of your stuff, and it's really fresh. So they bring, you know, daily everything to the market and they sell it. And the coolest thing is that everything here was really, really cheap. So for us to buy an avocado, it was like 25 cents. And for us to get, you know, a few tomatoes, it was like 20 cents. So everything, you know, was very, very cheap for us. So typically we would go to the market pretty much every day or every other day, depending on what we were making.
I think one of the scariest experiences for us here regarding food has been the meat. It's odd when you walk around in the street. There's animals roaming everywhere. You see donkeys and cow and goats and sheep and chickens even, and sometimes they're eating really disgusting things or walking around in piles of trash. So you see this happening for months, and then the next day, you know, there's a goat or a cow hanging in the local butchery shop window, and so there's no question as to where that meat came from. It's not a mystery at all. You've been watching this cow eating trash for the last few months, and so that always kind of weirded us out. And even the butcheries were really strange. You know, again, like I said, the meat's just hanging in the window on display for everyone. There's no refrigeration. It's not like the butcheries are sealed off, so there's flies all over the meat. Most of the time it's really tough and gritty. And when you go into the butchery and order a cut of meat, what they'll actually do is just take, it's like a huge machete, and just start hacking it off the animal that's hanging there in the window. And they'll take it over to almost like a big tree stump and just start hacking it to pieces right in front of you. So you're a little bit closer to your food here, I guess I would say. But it was definitely kind of unnerving to the point that well, Christina's a vegetarian, but I didn't eat a whole lot of meat here.
Wow.
So one thing that we felt like we were really fortunate to have in the Nairobi area, just because it's a big city, is we had westernized supermarkets. So when we did have the craving to have Americanized food, we could just really go to the supermarket, buy, noodles or pizza sauce, or even things like mac and cheese and Ritz crackers were available. So we were really fortunate just to have the option to go to the supermarkets if we wanted to.
There were a few really westernized restaurants in the area we lived in, but we kind of stayed away from those for the most part, just because the food was really expensive. But there was a few occasions where we would go out and kind of treat ourselves to some westernized food or some pizza or something like that. Another thing that kind of complicated cooking and eating over here is the tap water. Because we can't drink the water here, because of all the bacteria and parasites in the water that our bodies aren't used to, we even had to give our dishes special treatment. So we only would drink boiled or purified water, and when we cleaned the dishes after eating, everything had to be dunked in a bleach bath. So we would fill up a bucket full of water, pour some bleach in, and dip all our dishes in the bleach water before setting them on the drying rack. So everything tasted a little bit like Clorox for a while, but eventually we just got used to it.
So one thing I really enjoyed being over here was just being able to be taught how to cook Kenyan food. We also had a lot of our friends invite us over to their homes just to allow me to learn how to cook Kenyan food. So I got to learn from experts really how to make the traditional food like chapati and ugali. So that was really a great experience for me, and it was really cool to see how eager people were to show how to make things, and I really appreciated getting to learn how to make food.
One of the first things that we learned about eating here in Kenya is that you don't need silverware. We've been given everything that we need to eat right here with our hands and our mouths. This is the fork, this is the spoon, and this is the knife. So it was really kind of strange going into people's homes and no one puts any silverware in front of you. You're just expected to know that you eat with your hands.
So whenever we would go over to a family's home to eat, there were certain things that would always happen before a meal and during a meal. So every time before a meal, the wife would come out with a hot pitcher of water and a bucket, and she would go around and wash everybody's hands, generally starting with the men first. And so after we would wash our hands, the food would be served, and typically your portions were always given to you, so you couldn't choose what you wanted. It wasn't a self-service thing. So sometimes we would get these ginormous portions of food that it was almost impossible for me especially to eat. So I would say about 50% of the time, if not more, I would have to divvy my food over to Sam because I just could not eat anymore.
So we've really enjoyed the food here. We've really enjoyed eating and learning to eat Kenyan food.
We appreciate you watching, and if you have any questions, or again, if you would like any advice or training on how to cook Kenyan food, I can try my best.
I think that's about it.
They just look like beans.
Looks like diarrhea.